Chapter 6. A New Life. The moment Miracle spoke his name, Drupnir felt his stomach drop. The others heard it too. Ruva's head snapped toward him, eyes narrowing. "What did she just call you?" Harg let out a snarling laugh. "Drew, you've been making friends up top, little brother." But it wasn't just his siblings staring at him now. The other giants in the hunting party had paused, their glowing eyes flicking between Drupnir and the humans. His father, Gorm, stood at the back, silent, watching, waiting. Drupnir could feel it. His father was measuring him, weighing the son he had always seen as weak against the beast he could become. And then, Drupnir moved. Before he even realized what he was doing, he stepped in front of the girls, planting himself between them and his family. His massive frame blocked the entire tunnel, a living wall of muscle and defiance. Harg's grin faded. The other giants shifted uneasily. "Move, Drupnir." Ruva's voice rumbled through the cavern. "Now." Drupnir swallowed hard. His heart pounded in his ears. "No." Silence. Then, Harg attacked. The impact sent Drupnir staggering, his back slamming into the tunnel wall. The force of the hit rattled through his bones, but he didn't fall, not this time. Harg came at him again, but Drupnir caught him. With a roar, he swung his brother sideways, slamming him into the concrete with earth-shaking force. Dust and loose rock rained down from the ceiling as Harg's unconscious body flopped to the floor. For a moment, everything stopped. Then the other giants lunged. Two came at him from either side. Drupnir barely dodged, twisting away as one swung a jagged club at his head. He caught the second one by the arm and snapped his forearm, the sickening crack echoing through the underground. Another tried to blindside him. Drupnir turned and drove a fist into his gut. The giant doubled over, gasping for air. Two of them hesitated now, seeing their strongest fighters tossed aside like ragdolls. Their eyes flicked toward Gorm, waiting for orders. Gorm just watched. His massive arms were crossed over his chest, his expression unreadable. But his eyes, they burned with something Drupnir had never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, something else. The hesitation in the others grew. They weren't used to resistance. They weren't used to one of their own fighting back. Then one of them ran. Then another. The hunt was falling apart. Drupnir turned, chest heaving, his knuckles dripping with blood, just in time to see Ruva. She wasn't running. She was already midair, launching toward him, claws glinting in the dim tunnel light. Drupnir barely had time to react before she was on him. Ruva's claws raked across his chest. Drupnir barely twisted in time, but the sharp tips still tore through his coat, slicing into his skin. Pain flared, hot and sharp, but he gritted his teeth, planting his feet. She was fast, too fast. Unlike Harg, who fought with brute force, Ruva was precise. She didn't waste movements. She was already twisting, already coming at him again, this time aiming for his throat. Drupnir barely managed to raise his arm. Her claws sank into his forearm instead. Snap! He lashed out with his other fist, catching her in the ribs. She let out a sharp grunt, tumbling back, but she landed gracefully, crouched low, eyes gleaming in the dim light. She was smiling. "Finally," Ruva hissed, rolling her shoulders. "You're actually fighting back." Drupnir wiped blood from his lip. "I don't want to fight you." "Then you'll die." She lunged again. This time Drupnir didn't hesitate. He caught her mid-air, slamming her to the ground with bone-crushing force. The tunnel floor cracked beneath the impact, dust and dirt rising in a choking cloud. For a moment she didn't move. Then, a wet, wheezing chuckle. Ruva coughed, spitting blood onto the ground, but she was still smiling. "You should have done that years ago," she rasped. Drupnir's chest was heaving. He didn't want to kill her. She was his sister, but she would never stop. She'd never stop hunting them. He tightened his fists, heart pounding, and then a sound behind him. Miracle. The girls were still here, watching, frozen in horror. His stomach turned. This wasn't just about him anymore. Drupnir turned his attention back to Harg. The big oaf was stirring, groaning as he pushed himself up from the dirt, shaking his head like a bull shaking off a hit. His bloodshot eyes landed on Drupnir, then flicked to Ruva, and then the girls. Fear surged through them. They had been frozen, but now their instincts kicked in. They bolted. Ruva moved instantly, teeth bared, a hungry gleam in her eyes. Drupnir snapped forward, shoving her back before she could lunge. Harg was on him in seconds. The impact was like a boulder smashing into his ribs, sending Drupnir skidding back. He barely had time to raise his arms before a massive fist slammed into his jaw. Lights exploded in his vision. Harg grinned through bloodied teeth. Weakling. Drupnir barely had time to breathe before Ruva struck from the side, claws raking toward his throat. He ducked just in time. The two of them were working together now. Harg swung. Drupnir dodged. Ruva lunged. Drupnir barely threw up an arm in time, her claws tearing through his forearm instead of his throat. He gritted his teeth. This wasn't just a fight anymore. They were trying to kill him. The girls were still there, trapped, cornered, fear keeping them paralyzed. They had nowhere to run. Drupnir had to end this. Now Harg and Ruva both stepped back, breathing hard, sizing him up. Then they looked past him, at their father, waiting for his approval. Gorm nodded once. That was all they needed. Drupnir exhaled sharply. They charged, one from the left, one from the right. Drupnir didn't hesitate. As they closed in, he dropped low, then exploded upward. His hands shot out, one gripping Harg, one gripping Ruva, and with a deafening crack, he slammed them together. A shockwave rattled through the tunnel, bone hit bone. A horrible wet sound echoed, then silence. Drupnir's breath came in ragged gasps. He looked down. His siblings weren't moving. For a brief flickering second, he thought it was over. Then he looked over to where his father had been standing. Gorm was gone. A chill ran down Drupnir's spine. "Run!" He barked at the girls. Something massive crashed down onto him. The force sent Drupnir sprawling, his back slamming against the cold tunnel floor. Before he could even react, a heavy boot planted itself on his chest, pinning him down. Drupnir gasped for breath. His father loomed over him, his silhouette blocking out the dim light of the tunnels. Pathetic. Gorm pressed harder. Drupnir's ribs creaked under the pressure. "All that strength," his father muttered, his voice deep, almost disappointed. "And still, you are nothing." Drupnir clenched his teeth, struggling, trying to push Gorm's leg off. It was like trying to move a mountain. "After everything I've given you, this is what you choose," Gorm growled. "You should have let them die. You should have eaten your fill. But no, instead you turn on your own kin?" Drupnir snarled. "They're not food." Gorm's eyes darkened. "That's where you're wrong." The chain came next. A thick, rusted metal chain whipped around Drupnir's throat, cutting off his breath in an instant. Gorm yanked. Drupnir's body arched violently, his arms clawing at the metal, crushing his windpipe. "You've always been weak." His father's voice rumbled through the tunnel. "And now you'll die weak." Spots danced in Drupnir's vision. His hands were slipping. His strength was failing. And then, a sharp, wet sound, a low grunt. Gorm's grip shuddered, then released. Drupnir collapsed onto the ground, gasping, clutching his bruised throat. His father swayed, his massive frame trembling. A metal rod was buried in the back of his skull and had pierced clean through his eye socket. Dark blood dripped onto the tunnel floor. Drupnir's breath caught. His father staggered, swayed, then collapsed onto his knees. Miracle stood behind him. Her chest heaved. Her eyes were wide, terrified. Behind her, the other girls were frozen. A sharp, horrible silence fell over the tunnels. Then, from the shadows, a scream. Ruva's voice, shrill and filled with rage. "What have you done?" Drupnir turned just in time to see his siblings stirring, their eyes locked onto their father's lifeless body, then onto Miracle. Everything erupted at once. Miracle grabbed Drupnir's arm, tugging hard. "We need to go, now." Drupnir stumbled to his feet, chest burning, his vision still swimming. Drupnir ran. The tunnels blurred around him, the cold, damp air rushing past as his massive feet pounded the stone. Miracle held tight to his wrist, barely able to keep up. Behind them, the other girls followed, their breath ragged with fear. But something made Drupnir slow. He turned just once, just for a second. Through the dim, flickering tunnel lights, he saw them. Ruva, clutching her ribs, her mouth twisted in a furious snarl. Harg, dragging himself across the ground, his face bloodied, his eyes burning with rage. And between them, their father lay motionless. Gorm's massive frame was still, his broad chest rising and falling with labored, shallow breaths. Blood pooled beneath him. For the first time, Drupnir saw something he never thought possible. Fear. Not his own, but in them. They were afraid of him, of what he had done. Drupnir clenched his jaw and turned away. A hand grabbed his. Miracle. She stared at him, her breathing heavy, her eyes full of something he didn't understand. "Come on, big guy," she whispered. "Let's go." And just like that, he left his family, left his home, left everything behind. But as he stepped out into the neon-lit streets of Las Vegas, a strange sense of relief washed over him, like he had finally escaped a cage he never realized he was in. For the first time in his life, the future was his to decide. Epilogue. Lazarus Research Facility, Sublevel 4. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their cold glow casting sharp shadows along the sterile white walls. Dr. Dylan Dirk strolled down the hallway, his hands tucked casually into the pockets of his lab coat. His sharp, youthful features were unreadable as he approached a large reinforced door at the end of the corridor. A nearby security guard straightened as he approached. "Dr. Dirk," the guard said, nodding. Dylan barely acknowledged him, pressing his palm against the biometric scanner beside the door. A soft beep sounded, followed by the hiss of decompressing air as the security locks disengaged. The heavy metal door slid open, revealing the dimly lit laboratory beyond. Dylan exhaled through his nose, stepping further inside. "All right," he muttered. "What did we get tonight?" A lab technician turned from his monitor, adjusting his glasses as he gestured toward a holding cell in the corner. Behind the reinforced glass, Starla sat slumped in a chair, her wrists loosely strapped to the armrests. She was still smiling. Her pupils were blown wide, her head swaying slightly as she hummed some distorted tune under her breath. Despite the restraints, she didn't seem alarmed. If anything, she looked content. Dylan approached the glass, raising an eyebrow. "And where's the rest of them?" The technician hesitated. "Well, most of the others got away before containment teams could reach them, but she didn't run. Just kind of stood there in the alley staring at the sky, talking about how the moon was singing to her." Dylan smirked, watching Starla sway in her seat. "She's still high on life, isn't she?" "Off the charts," the technician confirmed, pulling up a vital screen. "No signs of withdrawal, no exhaustion, no panic. The compound's effects are still in full swing." He tapped the display. "She might be the perfect test subject." Dylan turned back to the glass, watching Starla giggle to herself as she rocked back and forth. "Huh," he muttered, intrigued. Dylan leaned toward the intercom, pressing the button with deliberate ease. A faint buzz echoed through the holding cell. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said smoothly. Starla's head jerked up, her glazed-over eyes focusing, or trying to. A slow grin spread across her face. "Hey," she drawled, her voice thick with intoxication. "You guys got any more of that stuff? That life stuff? 'Cause like, whoo, that shit's crazy." Dylan chuckled, exchanging a glance with the technician. "You like how it makes you feel?" Starla nodded aggressively, her curls bouncing. "Duh, it's like, I don't know, like I can hear colors, man. And I ain't scared of anything. Like, nothing even matters." Dylan's smirk widened. "Nothing at all?" Starla blinked at him, her expression hazy. Then she giggled again. "Nope, not a damn thing." Dylan straightened, looking back at the technician. "She's perfect." The technician nodded. "We should move her to phase 2 immediately." Dylan turned back to Starla, his grin never fading. "Good news, sweetheart. We're going to take real good care of you." Starla wiggled in her seat, still grinning. "That mean I get more of that life?" Dylan chuckled, stepping away from the intercom. "Oh, don't worry. You're about to get all the life you could ever want." He gestured toward the guards at the door. "Prep her for transport."